And that's how I generally like think about things. It's not thoughts separated from the images. It's like the image is there and then I can describe it.
Are some things just more difficult to articulate, period? Or is it because language isn't really like a suitable substitute for these other centers that are wanting to speak their own language?
Hi, I'm Emma.
And I'm Lisa.
And this is There Are No Tangents.
Feels like I seen this all in a dream. What's the purpose of a human being? Never mind me. I'm just lost in my thoughts. What's the topic? Ain't no topic. Keep it going, no stop it. Don't get the picture, then we grab it. With no emotion, what's the line? We just lost in our thoughts. Not on the surface, beyond that. Pull back the curtains, I'm on that. Once we take it there, ain't no going back. Don't be losing the topic, man. We gotta stay on track. Yeah, you so crazy, yeah, I know it. Tell me a story, like a poet. Yeah, like a poet. We getting lost in our thoughts. Welcome to the show. Emma and Lisa, they already on the roll.
Yellow. When my grandpa would answer the phone, he would say like yellow. And
yes.
So
yeah, I had a lot of that. A lot of that in my family too. Yeah. No. What's up, girl? What you been doing?
Shout out to our friend Josh. I had coffee with him this morning and that was a really great conversation. So I'm feeling, like, you know how you feel after like a really great conversation? It's like some energy has been like diffused somehow. And so that's kind of what's on my mind a little bit, in addition to this situation that's happening behind me with the loud noises. And it's beautiful morning. I swear it is hotter outside than it is in this house, or it's warm outside. So that's why it's so loud for me. I have the door open so I can warm up a little bit, but anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. That was super boring. How are you today?
It's not boring. This is like everyday life, right? I'm doing well. I'm having a good day today and no complaints. I've got my Enneagram call this afternoon. They're going to do with the group. I'm really excited to be with the group.
In a few weeks, right?
Yeah, it's been a few weeks.
Because you don't do it every week, right?
Right. That's right. Yep. So that'll be fun and looking forward to it. So, but I know our little brains have been abuzz with all of the different topics that we could discuss. We've just thought of so many different things that we could talk about, but for whatever, I don't know what to label this, Lisa, but for whatever reason, we're going to talk about, what would you say? Thinking in images, or not even thinking, just.
Yes. Awareness through images or something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure how to language that.
We'll have to figure it out for the title of the episode, but we'll get it. And maybe our listeners could chime in and say, duh, it should have been this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and this kind of came about because last week we were just talking about some different things, and I had kind of like two light bulb-ish moments. Mm-hmm. One was that I realized, and maybe we'll talk about this on a future episode. We've talked a little bit about this. One was that, I can't remember exactly what we were saying, but it kind of hit me, you're like cause and effect, boom, 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 boom. And you're like describing the steps in between. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I wonder if this is why I'm having a harder time connecting with some Enneagram 6 things, because I just realized, I don't think in steps. It's like, there's this, and this is going to be the outcome. And it's only through the articulation that I label each step, right? It's more of an awareness of the outcome. And it's not thinking through everything in between, right? And so I asked you if that's also what your experience is. because when you have a conversation with somebody, they're going to be describing the steps, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And yes, I really do want to circle back to this when we feel like we can beef it up a little bit more, because basically when you said that, you kind of asked the question of, is that how you think? Do you think in steps, or is it just an awareness, but then you have to explain it to people that way? Yeah. And I was like, I think it is just an awareness because of probably something around this whole thing with sixes and pattern recognition. It's like, I know how this is going to play out. I've seen this a time or 20. So yeah, but I think it is more in the articulation that I'll say, I know this, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to, but it's not in real time what's actually happening. So yeah, we'll have to get into that. But then I guess from there you came up with
I don't know. Again, I don't remember exactly what triggered this thought process, but I asked you if you also think in images or process in images or whatever, however we want to describe this, because, but like, for example, like if you tell a story, there will be a movie playing in my head, right?
I know what it was.
Saying that. Okay. What was it?
My car, it was messed up. Yes. And I just remember that because my car had not been starting. And in order to get from point A to point B, because I had shit that I needed to do, we were having to jump the car. And then once you got it going, it would kind of get the battery up and rolling. So anyway, I had to run this errand, and you were kind of like, I'm just having this image of you stuck in the parking lot with nobody around to help you jump your car. And I'm not trying to be your mom, but like, I was like, no, I'm worried about it too, but like, I have to do this stuff. So it's kind of like, roll the dice. Let's see how this plays out.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yes, I do remember that now, because I clearly have this image of exactly where you were in the parking lot. Right. Because that's
the Dairy Queen cake.
Yep, exactly. And that's how I generally like think about things. It's not thoughts separated from the images. It's like, the image is there, and then I can describe it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have this image, and from the image I can describe, I'm worried about you being stuck in the parking lot and XYZ, and maybe it ties in also with the process steps. Like, was it that same conversation? Maybe like, well, if you with your car, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and then what if that can't happen, and then what if you're stuck, and like all of this stuff. I wonder if it was the same conversation.
It was the same conversation. I don't think you articulated it that way in the moment, but they were tied together for sure. So it's crazy. And so I think one question that we had was, and people let us know, holla, if do you think in images, like is everyone do that? I mean,
I feel like I have looked into this before a long time ago, and I don't remember. I mean, I do think people, I mean, prepared to be very incorrect, but I do believe some people don't. Like, so you tell me a story and I am envisioning everything. Now, some of it, like, you kind of fill in the blanks, right? Like maybe you don't know what a person looks like, for example. And so you create your own image of that person or whatever. You don't know what this place looks like, so you create it for yourself. But I don't hear a story without imagining it playing out. And that's really cool on one level. On another level, it can be really hard because I can like hear something terrible happening, like to a child or something like that. And I don't want to imagine it, but I do. And then I actually can't talk about it. Like, it's so, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't want to see that. And even though I'm not really seeing it, I'm seeing it.
Yes.
So that's very hard. So like, I don't always love it. I don't that happens, and I can't stop it.
Right. And I wonder, I think we may have gotten into this a little bit when we were chatting, but for whatever reason, it feels fresh in this moment. And you talking about like, being able to just see things. And I think about like the different centers of intelligence, of course, because I have to talk about that all the time. But like, you know, really the head center is about how we see, like, you know, and not just like see with our eyeballs, but like the idea of just like vision and all of that kind of stuff sort of tying into that. And so it just makes me wonder, like, is that type of thing even more prominent, say for head types versus like, is it more of a, God, like, I don't know, like, let's say somebody is describing a situation, positive or negative, to say like a body type. Would it be more like, oh, I'm feeling these visceral sensations in my body, which it's not to say that we don't, because I know that that was a big reason you thought you were a body type, because you have that too. And I do too. And then I'm going, well, maybe it's not, oh, if you're a body type, it's more this. And if you're a head, I'm probably trying to box it in or compartmentalize it or make it kind of a little too neat. And it's probably not that, but I don't know. That would just be really, that's interesting for me to think about, like head types and like images and seeing and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and of course I go to human design as well. So, human design, each person there are several different types of, they call it like your cognition, your sort of like sense superpower or whatever. And that can be like touch or taste or smell. There's outer vision and inner vision. Inner vision is my strongest sense. So literally envisioning, you know, and right.
What's the difference? Can I like just ask a question about that? I don't know the answer. Obviously, that's why I'm asking the question. But like, what's the difference between inner vision and outer vision? Like, is there a tangible, or even it doesn't have to be tangible, just some kind of art, like how to articulate the difference?
I'm not going to do a very good job of this because again, it's been a very long time since I like read about the different ones. We like our friend Dominique to kind of clarify this a little bit. But with outer vision, I believe you're literally like, you need to look at things, like actually physically see in your environment, where inner vision is, you know, you close your eyes and like you don't. You can close your eyes and you can still see it, or that's how you figure out how, like for me, I guess I should say this from a personal experience. Like I can close my eyes and imagine like, it should look this way. This is how, whatever. Then to keep with human design, like I have that 3 line that's about trial and error. So I physically need to like work with it. But I can't flesh out I did at some point read more about that, because when I learned the different types, I assumed that I would be outer vision, because all of what I'm interested in pretty much relates to physical, like layouts and organization and aesthetics and things like that. So when I learned it was inner vision, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I kind of had to figure that out for myself. But
I don't, I'm trying to think. I always forget what mine is. I think you told me it's touch. Okay. Which I don't, I have got to look that up and see what that, I mean, obviously I know what touch is, but like, how does that show up? Like, what does that mean?
I think it's kind of like a point, like a way for you to discern what's right or not right. So when we had our friends Carrie and Dominique on the podcast, and I believe Carrie was sharing that hers is smell, right?
Yes, I do remember that.
And so she can like kind of like a sniff test or whatever. Now, how that translates for touch, for example, that I'm not sure.
Right. Like for instance, because I'm wondering, like, does it go both ways? Like you can be touched and you can touch. So is it more like I have to feel things literally with my hands, or is it more like the sensations on my body? Like, I don't know.
I would assume it could be both, but this is a question that we're going to have to get more answers to.
I'm just actually going to jot that down, because I really do want to look into that. I keep forgetting. So, okay.
Yeah, it's good. Right. Yeah. So that just took us off the rails.
Oh, no. No, it's all good. Do you know where you went? I had another thought related to like centers stuff.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
just a
go
silly
for it.
little, I mean, it's kind of also a silly little tangent. But well, I guess what I'm thinking of is like, so when we talk about like thinking in images and then having to almost translate it right to language and that kind of thing. I was just thinking about how, you know, the head center, it's more like, yes, it is more about like language. I mean, it's not just about language, but do you know what I mean? Like that's how our, like we're actually talking. It's like all, you know,
Mhm.
head
Yeah.
stuff versus, you know, the sensations in the body and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But like, so one thing, I mean, this is like such a random thing. I don't think it even ties in, but for whatever reason, when I'm thinking about language and the centers and like how the centers communicate, I remember watching this class, like an Enneagram class, and it's always stuck with me because it really like, I see it showing up in my life. I will notice myself doing this now. But they were talking about how like the 3 different centers kind of have their own language or they kind of speak in a certain way. And so they were saying like, so for like the body center, if it had a sound, it would be like, and
Which
if,
makes so much sense if you think
yeah,
about, again, human design, the sacral, that's what it is, right?
it is that. Yes, exactly. And then the heart center, they said it would be like, it's kind
Yeah.
of like, and I think
Quiet knowing.
yes, like in a tuning, like, I hear you.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
then for the head center, I think it was something like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Let me think
and
about that.
I
Or
find
whatever.
myself doing that all the time, and I do all of them. But if people listen to our podcast, I'm constantly and forever to a fault, like, or I'm like, huh,
Yes.
interesting. It's really interesting, you know? And it's like, is it that interesting, Emma? And I'm like, it is to me, you
It
know?
is. No, it really
Um,
is, because that's an example, I think, of something that just feels true, even if it's kind of hard to explain why. So you can make those sounds to me. I'm like, that's gotta be right.
yeah, it
Also,
does. It just,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
But I don't know. I wouldn't know how to back it up.
yeah. And then another thought, sorry, I'm really all over the place. Unsurprisingly.
No.
And so I had this thought when I was going through the centers class that I took a couple months ago. Gosh, how long has that been? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. The time is really flying this year. So anyway, but I remember, I don't know if it was during or after, but regardless, when we were doing the section on the heart center, I just had the thought, and I think it's because I was also like, sometimes I want to say things and I want to be able to articulate things, but language it's problematic, and it feels like it's not quite, like it's not enough, or you know what I mean? It just can't quite encapsulate what I'm trying to convey. Right. And so it just comes up short. And so I was kind of wondering, like, sometimes when I find things difficult to articulate, it's almost like it's because the image feels hard to translate.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of wondering, like, do I always think in images, or do I think in images more when I can't find my words or something like that? Because for a more concrete example, I've noticed that like in the interview I did, and then even in like my typing video that I did, I didn't realize how much I did this. And now I do notice myself doing this more like in real life, but I'll be like, okay, so the image that's coming to mind for me is like this, like, and I can kind of like describe that, but it's hard to put it into really like words. So anyway, I don't know. I was just thinking about something around like, are some things just more difficult to articulate, period? Or is it because language isn't really like a suitable substitute for these other centers that are wanting to speak their own language? Something like that.
Yeah, no, that resonates with me so much. I love that. And I'm thinking back to like being in a coaching session as the client, and, it's intuitive coaching. So very experiential, and without fail in every session, I'd be there, usually my eyes are closed, and I have these images of things that, yes, I would have these images and I would try to interpret the image to the coach, so that we could obviously keep it going. And how the images wouldn't necessarily make sense, so to speak, or it would be really hard to describe. And I do think that what you're saying, I don't know, that feels right to me, is like being in that sort of a space, in the heart space, right? Not thinking, not just feeling with the body, being in that heart space and like what feels like truth. Yeah, these images feel much deeper than what language can necessarily convey. And it's definitely like, I was going to say a felt sense, but not felt with the body, felt with the heart, just like a sense of like, here is this image. But if you could see the image, even, I still don't know if it would make sense. I still don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more than what I can describe.
Yeah. And that is hard for me, but I have just noticed how hard that is for other people to, I don't know. I'm kind of going off into like, well, I feel like for some reason, and it's probably because we are sixes and we on some level spend a lot of time thinking about what do I need to do and like decision making. And, we've talked a lot about like using the different centers for decision making and things like that. And so again, to your point of like the heart center just being like, okay, yep, I'm floating in this little like truth, heart ocean, whatever. And so now I'm going to try to put these words to it and link it to help make it make sense. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't work so well. And I think it's difficult for me and for a lot of other people, like if it doesn't make sense cognitively, because they don't have that heart, they haven't had that experience. They're just receiving like as you're articulating your experience and it's running through, their brain. And it's just, do you know what I'm saying? Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so to get back to, my example, I would say, here's my image. Here's what I see, here's what I see. And the difficulty of trying to translate that, but also trying to incorporate, this is also what I'm feeling. And it's like, see, right now, here's something that you and I think both say to each other a lot. It's like, I can see it, but I can't quite communicate it. Like it's there, it's right there, but I can't speak it. We both do that a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't even know what else. I think because it feels like the same sort of a thing. It feels like such a heart thing. I don't even know exactly what to say about that other than, I don't know. That's such a powerful experience, but also frustrating.
Yeah.
When you want to be able to share that experience with someone else, but they can't. Like even no matter how hard they try or no matter how good of a job you describing it, they might have their own heart response, right? I think that's possible, but can it quite be yours? Like the same as yours. You know what I mean?
No, yeah. I just thought of something else. Like, do you know, like, so again, the image I was thinking of when you were saying that was like, you know, those like old timey, you know, back from when we were kids. No, I'm kidding. This is from a really long time ago. Because we're old, but the little like telephone operator people that would put this wire here and put that wire there and whatever. It's almost like, okay, so what I was thinking of was, you know, we were talking about, I was like, oh, how the different like centers speak, but also you can listen. And I think that people, for the most part, listen here.
Yes.
So even if you're trying to communicate, it's there has to be a receiving of that on a heart level. And if they're not in a space to do that, maybe they don't know how to cultivate that. Maybe, to your point, they think they're having a heartfelt reaction, but really they're just reacting to other things. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's almost like it's not a heart, like literally it's often called a heart to heart, right? Like when you talk about those sorts of things, but like, I think with some people, it can be very difficult to have a heart to heart. It's more like a heart to head. And that just, it doesn't translate the same way.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. This feels so big, and I didn't quite realize how big it felt.
Yeah.
Until now we're talking about it. And again, like and that's it feels big, right? This isn't a perfect example of how like I can experience it. And it's like, I can see it, but I can't really see it. It's not clear, and I can't possibly describe it, you know?
Exactly. It's hard to manipulate. And then even when I think about that, like I've said this before, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but anyway, like the image I always get of like the heart center is, I feel like it's like when it'd be like trying to grab water.
Yes.
Like this, when I grab this is like head center, like it's in a container and the water's inside. Whereas like with the heart center, I'm like, wait, but the water is just like running through my fingers, you know? And it's sort of, it's hard to, like.
Oh, okay. Let me run this by you. Maybe this is kind of an example of listening with the heart, or at least trying to, versus listening with the head. And maybe it's not. I don't, let's see what you think. Okay. So I was working with someone this week who is trying to figure out a name for her business. And she's been working on this for a long time and has been playing with a particular name for a good bit now. And she thought she had it figured out. She mentioned the name to someone who then started just like asking questions, basically, that were like, you know, is this what you want? Are you sure, for these reasons? Which were good points, perhaps, right? But then, you know, she's thrown into confusion again. Like, and so we had to work through that. But as I listened and watched this person describe the connection with this name, it was like very clear, this should be the name, right? Because clearly it's like so personal, and she was clearly like so passionate as she described it, you know, and everything associated with it. And so I wonder if that's an example of like, you know, this other person was just listening here. Oh, well, here could be the reasons, like the logical reasons why this isn't for you. Or have you thought about this if you choose this name, or like that sort of stuff. So again, it's not like not useful to maybe consider, but at the same time, witnessing her heart when she talked about it, you know.
Yes. And
it's so much more powerful, you know.
Yeah, it just sounds like you were listening at a deeper level. Like, you know, because there are, right, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it sounded like. And I think that can be so powerful. You know, I know I've experienced that in like coaching sessions or therapy sessions as the client. And because I can feel what it feels like. I can say the words and think, but I'm not able to actually put my eyes on myself from the outside when I'm doing that and see how I'm like responding. So, I'm talking about something and I start to go like this, and it's like, or I start to fidget or like, bite my nails or something like that. And it's just different. And so that is also not just listening for what's being said, but like listening on a deeper level and witnessing the body language of a person or those sorts of things. And I think, that often gets missed because we are so focused on what is being said, which is not a bad thing. That's a very, very good skill. Like, oh, here's what I hear you saying. But sometimes there's a mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm like, oh my gosh, Lisa, I'm so excited about this. Like, like it's going to be so great. Versus if I'm like, no, I mean, I'm excited. Like, I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's just
Right.
like, are you
I'm thinking about me being like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Clearly not fine. Right.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
read what's really here.
Exactly. And that's what's so difficult. And here's the thing too, is like, sometimes as the person expressing, like, you may not know.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. I mean, sometimes, but you're like, I'm saying this because I don't want to mess with this or whatever the case may be. But like, sometimes it's like, you're just not aware. You're like, no, I'm fine, because you can't think of logical reasons why you shouldn't be fine, but you don't feel fine, you know? So it's so like complex. How do we get here?
Who knows? Like, this is the question that we ask all the time. I don't know. I'm like,
yep,
looking wild. Great.
I think you look fab. You look really great.
Okay. I don't know how we got here, but have we talked about I feel like we've maybe mentioned on the podcast before, like probably a while ago, that we were in talks about doing a workshop together on the three centers.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about that again, and how much more material it feels like we have.
Yes.
How much more, more questions too, perhaps, but I love that concept that you have of like, is this really just from the heart? And because it's from the heart, the head has a harder time accessing, and it's just sort of that's beyond language. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like, with the centers thing we talked about, I think we have more. And also, I think since our being seen episode, the Halloween episode, like, I feel like we were kind of dancing around that idea. And I think we actually did say a lot, but it was sort of, I don't know, like, slippery. And I think that, now we would probably have more to say about, being seen and all that kind of stuff. So,
True.
Anyway, just, we just keep expanding, girl. Just keep unfolding. Yeah. You never know. We're an endless fountain of, information and wisdom.
Yes. Thank you. That's very generous. I was thinking questions, uncertainty, my saying, I know I've looked this up.
You're not latching onto that.
Remember.
Yeah, you were not latching onto that at all. You're like, I don't know. Don't be so modest, Lisa. Tap into that 3-line, girl.
Oh my gosh. If only I had a better memory, I'd be very dangerous.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason why. Like, I'm not meant to be that dangerous. So
yes, exactly. These things were set into motion and they are at play for a reason. Yeah, exactly. Like, because I mean, we're so amazing. It's like, we can't be amazing at everything because people would just hate us.
No. Oh God. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of dangerous, right? Like, yeah.
Anyways, are we complete for today?
I think we are. That felt like a big, like, and then kind of rapid.
Yes. Yeah.
settle, but that's okay
Yeah.
because
You think
I
you reached
have
your
a hard-
climax pretty quickly there, and then
I really did. You brought it forth, girl.
that's so funny. Yeah, but I think there's still more around that. But I'm like, that's a good like intro or whatever to our thoughts on like images and
Well,
seeing images. So seeing
it
in
is, but
images,
like,
is that redundant? I don't know.
yeah, experiencing images. What do we want to say about that? But it still feels like they're like that. I did feel that at a heart level, to like truly that conversation. And that also makes me wonder if that's kind of part of why it was like, and then because it's like here, and again, like you kind of lose the language for it, but it still feels present, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, very possibly. That makes sense to me.
As long as it makes sense to you, I'm good.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's just us here,
It's right.
I'm
It's right.
always surprised when I find out that other people are actually listening to these. I'm like, really?
I know when we check, and like there are literally people all over the world who have
Uh-huh.
at least downloaded our podcast. I
Right,
don't,
exactly.
but I mean, literally all over the world. It's really, I don't know. That's really cool.
It is cool. Yeah. So email us, people, DM us, follow us on Instagram.
No, let us know who you are. Gosh,
Yeah.
anonymous.
Yeah. And answer our question of the day. Do you like visualize things in images playing out and then you feel like you have to translate them, or is that not a thing?
Yeah. Yes. Very curious. We need some data.
Mm-hmm. We always say this. We typically don't get much feedback on these questions, but I still think they're important to ask.
They are. So at least if you're considering for yourself, whether or not you tell us, fine.
Sure.
But yes.
That's probably the way it rolls most of the time.
Yeah.
So.
Please consider.
Okay. Well, I hope you have a fabulous day. You deserve it.
Yeah. So do you. God, come on.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. Well,
Here we are. All
until
right.
next time.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Hey, let's get it.
Thanks for hanging with us through today's tangents. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again soon, but meanwhile, you can follow along with us on Instagram at No Tangents. We would love it if you would subscribe and maybe even consider leaving us a review, a highly complimentary one.
Ain't no topic, keep it going, no, don't stop it. Don't get the picture, then we crap it. With no emotion, what's the logic? We just lost in our thoughts.